So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And yeah, I think I have a really strange talk, so I'm using this invitation to just empty my mind kind of in front of you. Because I've been working, I'm since a year in an art academy, and actually I'm not even an artist and I don't even teach. So I'm kind of using my own retreat and the fact that I really wanted to be the director of an art academy and work together in close relationship with artists and with the staff, of course, to think about how could we imagine differently curating, even if I never use the word, but I'm using it here for shortcutting it, like how to do exhibitions differently or how to actually rethink the language of institutions and the action that can take place in institutions. And in order to do so, I'm going to really, really strange places. So I've been spending the last year researching diets and Caroline Kushmina. And I'm kind of combining the research of diets with a research on rivers. And I am using the research on diets in order to create a theory that helped me to understand why don't we read the same way we used to read, and also research or actually learn about the development in internet, and kind of combine this idea of the diet with this idea of the hyperlink. In order to do so, I'm starting to do the most curious things, like getting interested into certain theories of sex, or certain ideas of sex, certain ideas of race, and as I said, the idea of rivers. So one of the rivers that interests me the most is the Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River is in a region called Louisiana, and the Louisiana region has underwent several and very complex colonial histories. And as you probably know, the Louisiana region was part of the Spanish colonies and was kind of discovered by Hernando Soto in 1512. So the Mississippi River, apart from its cultural history, is also interesting because the fact that this river has been trying to change its course for centuries, if not for thousands of years. And the human action has been kind of trying to modify this wheel of the river to change. As I said, the river Mississippi was Spanish, and then the French bought it from the Spaniards in the 1682, and it was 100 years French. And then the Spaniards bought it from the French in 1762, and it was another 100 years Spanish again, excuse me. So it changed hands, and the Spaniards and the French has been just selling back and forth the Louisiana region for strategic purposes, and also in order to control the river and agriculture and all that. So in reading about the river Mississippi, I started reading about somebody that actually I never thought that I would actually connect with anything called the Metabolic Era, or my ideas of how we could think about certain notions of modern political theory that kind of infatuated as well certain curatorial methods and certain ways of structuring the reception and the display of knowledge, and as well the display of art. Like, for example, questions of identity, political identity, agency, race, and also like the question of identity in the sense of cultural identity and nationalism. So coming from Spain and being partly, or kind of originally not, but being raised in Barcelona, I came to think many years that it would be really great if we could imagine other ways of naming or breaking the kind of imaginations that the national state has provided us, and also the ways that institutions and art has been kind of absorbing them. So, and in thinking about this, how can we do that, I got interested in Josephine. And Josephine, as you know, Josephine Bonaparte was the wife of Napoleon Bonaparte. And Josephine Bonaparte, it's a character in history that has a very strange historiography, because she has been kind of neglected or kind of positioned as a not that intelligent woman, and most of all, not a very beautiful woman. So nobody could actually understand why Bonaparte, that was kind of presented as a very intelligent man, but with a very poor looks and very poor also social skills, was interested, but not only interested, was crazy about Josephine. So Josephine and Napoleon married when he was 26, and he kind of announced to her that he wanted to become the Emperor of France, and she was 32 and already had 2 kids. So the kind of rumor said that that Josephine was, kind of a passive woman, but she has been the mistress of some general, and by becoming the wife of Napoleon, the former attachment to this other general helped him to just raise in the power of France. But if you carefully read the correspondence in between these 2 humans, like Napoleon and Josephine, you discover a total different dimension. And funnily enough, if you actually read the diaries, the multiple texts that Josephine wrote herself, you even discover a complete different story as well. This story goes and runs not over the politics and the fact that, in fact, she was the mistress of a general, and that Napoleon most probably used that as well, and she as well, to gain a different tactical position inside France. But the fact that she was a woman that desired sex. Not only she desired sex, but she really openly talked about it with the men she has been with and with other women. It was an uncommon question in the France of that time that a woman would express the desire of having more sex, not only of having sex, but having more sex, and also being open with the kind and the people that she would have sex with. So she openly said to Napoleon that she was, of course, okay with marrying him, but every time that he was in a battle or in a campaign, that may create a problem, because the amount of sex that you get when your husband is not at home is kind of close to zero, if you don't take action, and she did. So, but also Napoleon was kind of interested enough referring to the story in the correspondence. So she was in a letter that he sent to his kind of best friend, referring to the fact that he was crazy about Josephine because of her bed experience. He was saying that it was not only good in bed, but by being good in bed made him good in bed, and also that he was gaining a new understanding of what it means, the body of a woman and his own body. Josephine as well, she was kind of explaining in the diaries the fact that it was very important to perform sex in a way that you would actually detach your body from it and even your mind and concentrate into the action of exchanging the pleasure and understanding pleasure in itself. So, as I said, I was completely surprised by this kind of research that is kind of recent, because this woman was not at all very, as I said, very research into the historiography. So, it was very few mentions about who she was. There is 2 or 3 descriptions, and all the portraits that we have seen are kind of dull. And as you know, you can just kind of not rely on this kind of visual information. So the descriptions of Josephine are like she was not ugly, but she was not good looking. And all of them coincide that she has really bad teeth. So nobody kind of could understand, also because historiography neglects the fact that she was probably also as intelligent as he was, why Napoleon was so attracted to her. So the bad teeth came because of a very curious fact that really surprises me, and it didn't. And it has to do actually with how my mind connects things, probably. So she did have bad teeth because the origin of Josephine is from La Martinique. And in La Martinique, you just eat sugar cane. And I don't know if you are familiar with the Caribbean, but in the Caribbean, many people, they chew sugar cane. And in doing so, your teeth become kind of rotten in its appearance. So she did have this kind of sugar cane teeth that it was very peculiar, and they struck the French at the time because they were not used to see this kind of thing, because it's a very peculiar yellow and black color what the teeth acquire by eating this thing. And apart from that very peculiar thing that she was Caribbean, that she was from the Martinique, she also made a point that was never trespassing the public opinion, that she was not white. Josephine was kind of white in appearances, but she was coming from probably an interracial marriage. So she was, in Martinique, considered black. So she was a black woman in a white body, so to say. And it kind of struck my imagination also the way that this combines with her ideas of sexuality. At the same time that Josephine and Napoleon were in Paris, and they were like, you know, becoming the couple of the century, we could say, other couple came into France. And this other couple was Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson was sent by the government of the United States to actually do something that is anti-constitutional. He went sent to the United States to buy Louisiana back from the French. So the French had the Louisiana, and by having the Louisiana, they did have the Mississippi River, and the Americans needed the river. They needed to control the river because the Mississippi River is actually the water of the United States. So without the water of the United States, it was difficult to even configure the geography of the United States. And even if the buying of the Mississippi River is prior to the Civil War, it's actually that purchase that determined the Civil War and actually the confederation or the reconfiguration of the United States as we know it now. So Thomas Jefferson was, as I said, with a lobby of people of Washington, determined to go to France and tell Napoleon that they wanted the river back, they needed the river back, and that they wanted to buy it. But it was also an anti-lobby that it was not at all opposing to Jefferson buying the river, but opposing to the fact that a territory could be bought without a war from another country. So it's anti-constitutional. So this kind of provoked an immense controversy that is kind of also at the origin of the Civil War somehow, because the river promised a unification that not all the states, the North and the South, wish to acquire. And they saw in the buying of the river this kind of promise of getting back together, or even the same promise as Napoleon, this idea of unifying the territory and conceiving a kind of all-encompassing model for everyone. But Jefferson was also not alone when he went to Paris. He went there with a woman that was called Sally Hemings. And Sally was theoretically the accompany, or the person that was accompanying one of the daughters of Jefferson that was in Paris studying. But there is chronics that show that Jefferson took her to a couple of meetings with Napoleon and Josephine under the excuse that she was a maid of the house and he may need some assistance, even if nobody at the time understood the presence of that woman that was not the wife with him. But even if in the States, later on, there were rumors that Jefferson and Sally Hemings, that they were having an affair. This affair was under the name concubinate because actually Sally Hemings was the slave of Thomas Jefferson. And interestingly enough, Sally Hemings was white, but was black, because Sally Hemings was born from a black mother, but from a white father. But she happened to be born white, so she was a white woman that it was in the society a slave and considered black. Sally, at the contrary with Napoleon, Thomas, like Jefferson, never ever recognized, or divorced, of course, of the wife, that they have a relationship with this woman. And it has only been now, under the administration of Barack Obama, that it has been research done and DNA exams conducted to determine if the rumors that the 6 children of Sally were actually the children of Thomas Jefferson, that they conclude it was true. So Thomas Jefferson was together with a woman that was white but was black, and that being white but being black prevented her from many things, and one of these things was to be even recognized in the society. But she was introduced to another woman, Josephine, that was also white but was black. And then in that kind of meeting, they were determining something that is interesting, which was the buying back the Mississippi River from France that happened in 1803. This episode that has absolutely no importance, but only importance in my mind for reasons that I probably very poorly can explain today, I put it together with a book that I always liked, but I actually did not know how to like it in proper terms, or how to like it so that my passion for that book would explain how did it inspire me. So in 1966, Jean Rhys, that was actually of Caribbean origins, Creole, but living in Ireland and Scotland, published The Wild Sargasso Sea. The Wild Sargasso Sea is a very well-known novel where there is two individuals, like a woman and a man, that they marry per documents, per powers. And where she goes to England, and she gets mad, and the book passes as the kind of first part of Jane Eyre, that is a novel that has been written by Bronte much before. So it is the first part of a book that has been having, like it's the sequel of something that is kind of anachronistic, so to say. So what interests me in the book is the terror of the husband of Antoine. Antoine is a woman that is white and marries that man that, because of rumors and documentation, as it happens in the Caribbean, discovers that she is white, but she is black, because she is also the product of an interracial marriage. And she cannot bear the rumors and kind of believes it, because disbelieving them would mean to keep on having sex with her, and by having sex with her, they may have children. If they do have children together, as genetic told us, the children maybe end up being black. So by him being right, he would be wrong. So he preferred to be wrong and actually stop sleeping with her. So the first part of the book describes how Antoine and the husband, that are also in Martinique, are having a great sexual relationship, very uncommon. And the major part of the book, the first part of the book, is told by her. She is telling about her desire and the fact that she found a man that was only by chance, that she does not really know, and that actually in not knowing him, he really passionately loves him even more, because there is no attachment. There is nothing but the desire that she is discovering through that man, that maybe be the complete foreigner, so to say. The second part of the book is written under the voice of the husband, that is starting to actually listen to all these rumors. And the first part of the second part, he describes how he is completely taken aback by the power and the decision that she has in actually wanting sex and having sex with him and being able to decide. And on the other hand, he's also kind of listening to these rumors and is becoming frozen and hysterical about the fact that he needs to stop having sex with her, because if something happened, meaning having children, in the book is not at all explicit about it, he may discover a terror story, which is that this woman is actually not white, but is black, and that he has been having sex with a black woman. Funnily enough, the person that actually sent a decree to IT just at the beginning, at the beginning of his mandate, was Napoleon. Napoleon said to the governor of IT that they needed to call and to actually report every white woman in the colony that would have an episode of intimacy with a Negro man. So this was absolutely not desirable for many reasons, and the reasons that this was not desirable was exactly for that kind of ambivalence that was created not only in racial terms, but also in social and, let's say, in epistemological terms, that was creating some sort of image that was not an image of what was actually going on, since it was clear, it was very difficult to determine not only the race, not only the color, but even the body, even the mind, even the desire. So the desire of these people appeared to be a white desire, but white woman, don't actually have that desire. And then it's only supposed to have men that do have this desire. So it was actually Josephine, one of the first pioneers in explicitly address this kind of desire. And it was kind of Jean Rhys like one of the few that gave some fictional but also theoretical form to this kind of contradiction that helped me to understand the burden of the body and actually how this could be understood. So there has been many theories that say that to have sex with members of a different race would at that time be considered anachronistic, because it would not just help the advance of the race, but actually it retrocedes. So it was a fantastic book by Valerie Rohi, which is like an American literary scholar, that she has been analyzing this beauty of producing anachronism by giving up to interracial course and actually embracing this kind of ambiguity of the not knowing, which is coining and is determining the whole Caribbean region. So what I wanted to tell you is that I see in this an enormous potential to be combined with something that has nothing to do with it, which is the certain theories of digital reading that Catherine Hayes is developing. So Catherine, that produced a fantastic book about the history of reading and digital reading, is very concerned about the different selves that modernity has been producing. And she talks about the humanist self and about the liberal self and about the natural self. And then she said that in order to understand the post-humanist self, we need to understand the kind of problem that the body poses to technology, but also to modernity, and how actually we could reach a different idea of the body dissolving, and by dissolving it, being materialized as well. So she said that it would be really kind of counterintuitive, but even counterproductive, to think that technology or the new developments in information theory and internet, whatever devices you take, would turn us into super people with superpowers and enhance our body. So, but it would be exactly as kind of naive to think that we are going to become virtual, because there is nothing virtual in us. So the question and the difficulty is posed of how actually regain a much more fluid, if you want, or a much more disembodied but materialized sense of the body. A sense of the body that actually contradicts the natural self, that all these theories about that modernism, and that they are kind of also fundamental to understand the modern era, but also our inherited ideas of race, and also because of that, our inherited ideas of citizenship, and because of race and citizenship, our ideas of freedom, and because of race and citizenship and freedom, our ideas also of democracy. And if we consider all of that, then we could actually reconsider through this idea of a body that is actually that we are liberated from, but we are materialized in, we could actually reconsider certain ideas of feminism, and then we could reconsider certain ideas of technology. And that actually technology would be a way of thinking about citizenship and feminism in completely non-modern ways that would kind of say goodbye to this contradiction in terms that were actually embodied in these prejudices and these ideas of freedom and the natural self and the liberal self and the humanist self that before, a little bit before modernity and in the after-modern has been so prevalent. So the book of Jan Ries is published in '66, and the major development on readership and the hyperlink that has been conducted mostly by Douglas Engelbert are from the same time, more or less, which is the mid-'60s, or from the beginning of the '60s to the end of the '60s. So there is absolutely no thesis that I can present to you, but I am just trying to write about all these elements and to develop an idea of a metabolic self, or a self that can metabolize all these different aspects that we have been inherit from these ideas of the self, but also from new ideas of the self, in order to be able to imagine, how can we call it? Like imagine the position of culture and art differently, so to say. And I could stop here. Sorry, I was like... But I also admit questions, because I know that I'm a freaky in thinking about that. So because I could talk for another hour about how whites are actually black, but also how anorexia and modernity enter in complete contradiction and diets. But I don't think that you would understand it. And probably I did my point. In order to, after Documenta, I was completely fascinated by, well, the question is, you could go and make exhibitions. And I know how to make exhibitions, more or less, or I think I do know, or I can do exhibitions. People can do exhibitions, organize them and present work. But how to reinvent the kind of cultural and political ideological framework of this context where we present art and we do exhibitions and we write about art and we discuss about art. And one of the questions that really bothered me, because I did not have enough answers to it, was race, and the question of race, and the question of differences based on that notion that we have been skipping or not addressing, and so on and so forth. So, and again, I went to race as understanding it as a metabolic process of merging. And in order to understand that better, I start going into rivers and the Caribbean, because it always interested me, and because I think that the Caribbean possesses a knowledge into this kind of systemic metabolic imaginations. But on the other hand, I started to be interested in feminism under a complete, very strange point of view, which is the point of view of diets. And I started to research the history of diets. And I came, because I was in Switzerland, I came by chance. I went to see a friend in Lucerne, and she started talking about raw food. And of course, in Switzerland, there is like thousands of moments where these ideas of food and different living and alternative and so on, Steiner theories pop up. So in one of these conversations, well, I could not relate to it. So I could not relate to that, and I couldn't find an entrance to that. But everyone is actually possessed by this controlling the body through diets and through nourishment, and not only women, but more than women. But it determines, in a very specific way, the desire of women to not be determined by the bodies and be determined by the bodies. So this kind of dialectic relationship, and not a happy one, with the body. So I found out about the writings of Caroline Kuchmina, and Caroline Kuchmina was a Russian woman that started a research in Russia, was kind of part of the avant-garde at the beginning of the century, but for political reasons migrated to Switzerland, and is somehow a pioneer, not only in the history of vitamins, but in the history of the interrelation of essential oils and vitamins. So as early as 1912, she started publishing books on synthesization of elements. She was not addressing the vitamins, because the research, it's a very kind of kaleidoscopic one that was taking place in Germany with one of her collaborators in England and in the United States. So I then got completely fascinated by the history of how vitamins got isolated, and they were synthesizing them. So there is, as you know, like two types of vitamins, those that are actually dissolving or living in water, and those that kind of morph with fat, and she was like a pioneer in trying to not only connect with the different groups of research, but not applying that to biochemistry in a more academic or lab-oriented situation, but to the daily use, to the transformation of the diets of people in order to transform their bodies. So the dream of Kushmina was a dream that kind of is interesting one, at least for me, which is one that does not use your body as a witness. She was extensively writing about the fact that if you eat well, contrary to drugs, if you take drugs, you are the witness of the effect that the drug has on you. So you have a certain stage, then you take the drug, and then you are in a different stage of mind. And you witness it. You are there. You are synchronized with yourself and more or less synchronized with this effect. You are kind of the recipient of that effect. But diets, and if we start dieting, if we imagine the generation of Kushmina dieting or starting dieting as our mothers, then by 3-4 generations, the body of these daughters is a complete different body. It's a slow process, and nobody can witness the effect of these essential elements in our body in an immediate way. So it kind of alter, it kind of engineers, if you want, the science, to use this kind of modern words, the body, but in a much more slow motion or slow process. And it offers the diet a really strange and interesting counterbalance to the fastness, to the maleness, to the braininess, to the Napoleonic decree on race of drugs. So diets are really the contrary of drugs. They cannot be used for partying, as you know. And I thought that by researching into it, I found inspiration on these metabolic systems that are actually at work, but you cannot really witness them. And I put that kind of in parallel to art. So I see art as that kind of body, which is disembodied but materialized. And that's what I'm thinking about right now.